All right, we're just going to kick off. There might be a few more people joining as we go along, but we don't want to keep anyone waiting for too long. So I just want to say welcome everyone who's joining us today, and I hope you've had a chance to join some of the other sessions earlier in the day. It's such a great big UK-wide conference, so I really hope you've had the chance to do that. So I hope you're in the right room. This meeting is called Tools for Co-Production. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And my name is Ursula. I work for Cyrenians up in Scotland as Policy and Participation Manager. So I'll be chairing the session today, but I also work on All In for Change, which is one of the projects that you're going to hear from today. So I'll be doing a bit of presenting as well. But you won't just hear from me. There'll be lots of other people talking, so don't worry too much. Just before we start, so this is a webinar, so we can't see any of your lovely faces, but you can see us. But we do have the chat on the side. I think someone from, Abby from St. Martin's has put a bit of stuff in the chat already. You can use that to introduce yourself, any kind of thoughts and reflections throughout, please use the chat. However, if you do have like a quite specific question that you want us to address, that you want the speakers to talk about, there's a little Q&A button, and it'd be great if you can use that because it just makes it a bit easier to keep track of the questions instead of scrolling through the chat. So that's just a little reminder. And I think maybe you can vote on the questions as well. So if someone's already asked what you really want to know, you can kind of click on it, and we can see that there's a lot of interest in that. But I think that's kind of all of the housekeeping stuff. And tools for co-productions, that's what we had to hear about today. You'll be hearing from two quite different projects. So we got a peer research project in Brighton, and then we got On for Change, which is a platform for lived and frontline experience in Scotland. And we'll have kind of two presentations where you'll hear a bit more about the projects, and then we're hoping to have around 20 minutes at the end for questions. If you've got any questions throughout, just pop them in the Q&A. I'll just let all the speakers introduce themselves as well before we kick off with the presentations. Gail, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Welcome everyone. I'm Gail Butler, and I'm the Participation and Learning Coordinator at Just Life. And I'm going to be talking to you first off about our co-produced peer research manual that we did at Just Life as part of a peer research project. So looking forward to it.
Excellent. Thank you, Gail. Viki, do you want to come in?
Hi, I'm Viki Fox, and I work for Cyrenians alongside Ursula as Policy and Participation Manager, and work on the All In for Change team.
Brilliant. And James?
Hi guys, I'm James. I'm one of the associates at the Homeless Network Scotland, and I do a wee bit in the Frontline as well, the Blue Triangle.
Amazing. Thank you so much, James. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Gail first, and really looking forward to hearing more about the peer research in Brighton. Are you all right to share your screen, Gail? Yes. Yeah, that's all up for me, Gail. I can see it. Oh, I don't know if you're trying to speak. I think maybe you're on mute, or maybe I can't hear you.
Hello.
There we go.
I thought I wasn't, but thank you. Well, thank you everyone for attending. It's great to have you all along. So, as I say, I'm the Participation and Learning Coordinator, and I work for Just Life, which is a homeless charity, and we're predominantly based in Manchester and Brighton, and we support people living in temporary accommodation. And my role is to support the development and promotion of safe, inclusive, and meaningful lived experience practices. And one of those ones that has been peer research. So since January 2024 until March 2025, I coordinated a peer research project, and although it's now concluded, I've continued to promote the valuable learning that has emerged, which has directly contributed to our team's objective to really share that learning more widely to other services. And so I really want to kind of talk to you about how we co-produced it and support you in considering setting up a peer research or community research project. But this toolkit can also apply to how to set up lived experience groups as well. So I'm just going to move to the next slide. So peer research, what is it? So peer research is a participatory approach where people with lived experience of an issue, in our case, it was homelessness, they take an active role in designing and conducting and shaping research. So rather than being the subjects of the research, peers become co-researchers, working alongside facilitators as equals. And peers can be involved in all stages of the research or can contribute to a specific part depending on the scope of the project or also the interest of the peer researchers. And crucially, it really recognises that lived experience brings knowledge that can't always be learned and brings that unique expertise. So in terms of our peer research project, the idea came from our research on hidden homelessness, which uncovered deep-rooted systemic injustices in homelessness sector and the intersectional nature of homelessness. And so it highlighted the urgent need to bridge the gap between decision makers and those directly affected by homelessness, ensuring that all voices are heard and valued. So in response, we sought funding from the Young Foundation, and we wanted to support a project led by individuals with lived experience of homelessness. So the funding that we've received was through the Community Launch Fund, which supports grassroots community groups and organisations across the UK by uncovering knowledge and transforming innovative ideas into actions that address both local and national challenges. So the peer research group that we set up consisted of 5 individuals with lived experience of homelessness, each representing a diverse range of intersecting experiences and identities, including neurodivergence, sexual orientation, ethnicity, gender identity, and disability. And so this inclusive approach really offered a broader perspective of the challenges faced by individuals experiencing homelessness. So as part of the project, the pilot group were given 12 weeks of training on research skills and also about what intersectionality is, and also bringing about their recognition of their own personal skills, of what they bring to research. So as the project progressed, both facilitators and the peer researchers really gained valuable insights into how to safely and effectively conduct peer research. So as a result, the group decided to co-produce an open access peer research manual that wasn't behind a paywall and kind of be useful to other services. And it really captured the process of establishing a peer research group and highlight the unique challenges and achievements encountered along the way. So we were really fortunate that the Young Foundation supported a really flexible approach, which we really used to our advantage in shaping how we delivered the project through reflection and kind of adapting along the way. And this allowed us to respond to the community priorities in a more meaningful and effective way. So we've really since found a lot of interest in our work from peers and charities and academics, local authorities, as a lot of services are really kind of grappling how to engage communities safely in centering lived experience in their work. So it goes much beyond the sort of box ticking and kind of making sure it's really meaningful and not tokenistic. So the pilot manual has been used to set up lived experience for peer research groups across a range of communities, including migrants, domestic abuse survivors, individuals affected by gambling harms, criminal justice system, LGBTQ plus communities, and survivor of traumas and trafficking. So although the manual initially was working for homelessness, we've really kind of gone out and kind of thought about that more widely and applied that. And so we kind of wanted to kind of make that even more accessible and more usable for other communities. And so we wanted to kind of support other services. So what we did is we sought funding from the Young Foundation further and expanded its testing of the research manual in early 2024. So we set up more peer research groups, which involved in total 19 peer researchers from Just Life and also Rise, which is a domestic abuse charity based in Brighton, and also partnered with University of Southampton. Gathered insights as well from Shelter Cymru and Shared Health Foundation to kind of ensure that it kind of meets the needs of everybody, not just one pilot peer research group. And this brought, again, like a wide range of intersection experiences, including families in temporary accommodation, as well as just single adults, and also people experiencing domestic abuse where people might be insecurely housed. And much of the content kind of remains the same, but we have broadened it out. It was like a short sort of peer research manual that was like 50 pages, but we've now kind of broadened that out to focus on setting up a peer research group and also about the session planning guides to actually train people from communities on research and make it really engaging and accessible, and also looking at stories and the glossaries. And so I'm going to talk to you more about the process of how you'd set up a peer research group. So one of the main things that you begin your project with is your planning and preparing. So before thinking about it, it's good to kind of reflect on your motivations of why you want to do peer research and ensure that like you have the time and resources and the capacity to doing this meaningfully. To avoid tokenism by committing to genuine respectful participation. And so when you begin, it's good to have a general idea of the research topic and the communities you hope to engage. However, it's good to kind of stay open and flexible. So in our peer research project, we looked at the sort of broader focus, which was going to be on intersectionality. But then we asked the peers what they wanted to conduct their research on. And so this was led by their own sort of experiences or their own interests, rather than us kind of setting an agenda of what we wanted them to go out and research. So it was like really rooted in personal experiences and driven to design and explore the issues that mattered most to them. And so we really communicated and worked collaboratively with the Young Foundation to ensure this. So it's really important also to have proper budgeting and time planning and to ensure the emotional and practical support is in place. And also when you're facilitating community research sessions, it's important, we found, to have 2 facilitators in your session. And one is to focus on the content of the session, but also another facilitator in place to support with the well-being of the group, as community research can bring up sort of triggering content. So it's important to kind of have a breakout space where someone can leave the room and they've got that well-being support as well as the learning aspect of the content of research. And we found that it was also really important to have clear and accessible policies and that are really available and transparent to your group and what you do, for example, if there's a safeguarding, and being really like accessible and in a language that can be understood. So it's really important to also think about your recruitment and meaningful involvement. So there's been a cornerstone of our research. So it's good to kind of think when you begin with your peers, thinking about the roles and responsibilities and level involvement from the outset. So some like peer researchers may want a significant role where others might prefer the occasional engagement. And it's really helpful to kind of be flexible and have a non-pressured approach. And thinking about, for example, who's going to do what? Are they going to do the whole project, or are they going to be involved on certain aspects? And kind of being really clear with expectations from the very beginning. And so it's kind of, there isn't kind of any confusion or kind of, and that really helps with the equal sort of working of who's going to do what from the outset. And so it's also helpful to consider the demographics and communities you aim to engage and insights that the community can offer that you might not be able to do through traditional sort of mainstream research. And thinking about whether it's going to be beneficial to your peer researchers, or in the way that you're doing it, could it raise ethical concerns? And thinking about the barriers such as time constraints and the accessibility challenges. So We really found that it's important to have also smaller peer research groups, as they work much better, which has been voiced by our groups, and you can offer that more sort of one-to-one support and kind of really like come together really closely as a group as well. And it's important from a facilitator perspective to kind of be realistic about the support that you can provide. If you've got too many peer research, you're not able to provide that sort of level of support that might be needed. And thinking about also remaining aware of any personal biases and your assumptions about a community, what the priorities might be for the community. So really kind of allowing them to lead the way and really learn from them rather than kind of coming in with a set agenda. And we found that another important part is about time. So peer research really requires significant time and resource, but it's so valuable. But it's important when you're kind of going through the design stage, whether you have the capacity to fully support the project of this nature, including co-producing the work and providing appropriate psychological support. But this isn't the only way. You can do much faster sort of co-production service design sprints that could take 6 weeks, but ours took over 2 years. So research has shown that working at a slower pace is often most psychologically accessible and trauma-informed way to run a participatory group. It allows participants to kind of build time and trust and process information and raise concerns privately if needed, and take a step back from the work when necessary, like helping to reduce the risk of burnout or psychological overload. And being really clear about the duration and the frequency of meetings while remaining flexible to suit individuals' needs, and consider kind of thinking about the format of different learning styles and personal commitments, ensuring the environment is accessible and welcoming. And kind of we went through an opt-in, so it wasn't essential that people came to every session, because you need to think about where people are at in terms of their journeys and what are their priorities. Like they might have more pressing issues, for example, appointments or just general things going outside the session. So like less pressurized and kind of more psychological safety.
Oh, I think we lost you for a wee
I think
second there, Gail.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's all good.
Yeah.
I'm always paranoid that it's my connection when that happens.
No, can you see that?
It's just loading for now, but it is, yes, we're back, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Room with flow a second, 1 minute. Okay, so I was talking to you about I was moving on to talking about payments. So it's really important that you recognise the time and expertise that your peer researchers bring to your research. So we pay people for being involved, and that involves paying for people's expenses, such as public transport, any hotel stays or childcare, meals or accommodation, equipment costs, and also their time in the meetings. And that's for your participants, but also for your peer researchers. So one of the key things that we really thought about and learned a lot about when facilitating this project was about accessibility. And this isn't just about the physical barriers. This is things like logistical things. So whether you can afford and offer childcare to if you're working with families, they might have children that they support and they might not necessarily be in school. So are you going to have them in the space and join? But that might help people feel more connected with their children, but also that might be distracting or a trigger for another person in the room. So thinking about that could be a barrier for someone entering the project. And so how are you going to support around that? And also thinking about the physical side, ensuring that venues are accessible with ramps and lifts and accessible toilets and near to public transport links as well. And we found that one of the big things is having a lot of space. So a lot of our group was neurodivergent, so they found it really hard to sit still. So they really liked having a lot of movement around. And also some of the venues that we initially hired maybe didn't have a window, so they like to have windows so you can kind of help with the sort of ventilation and kind of not feel so trapped into a space and kind of help with the sensory aspect. which brings me on to more about the sensory bits. In terms of, we feel that it was really important to have venues that offered things like softer lighting, because some people experience the world differently, and where there's no sudden noises. And we also provided sensory toys because it really helped people focus and sort of keep people in the space if like anything did arise that might have been triggering. And thinking about as well the psychological accessibility, using absolutely being welcoming, and using spaces that were non-service provider sort of spaces, as this could bring up past trauma where they might have previously accessed this space, and also being non-judgmental, and kind of a welcoming and understanding sort of space that supports with the psychological aspect. And also thinking about digital, so supporting participants with sort of limited digital access by providing services, devices or printouts. And we tended to work mostly on post-it notes and flip charts. It's much more engaging. And if you do have sort of computers, then people, if they are experiencing homelessness, might not have access to these because of digital exclusion and no Wi-Fi, for example, in temporary accommodation. And also using content that's plain language, large fonts, visual aids, and kind of interactive, for example, using videos. So also thinking about the emotional safety and support. So offering one-to-one support for your participants and your peer researchers before events, during events. So if people need to leave the space, having a facilitator on hand, as well as the opportunity to meet one-to-one for debriefing as well, and letting people choose the time and space where to meet that's convenient for them. Also thinking about supporting your facilitator well-being, as this can be sort of emotionally sort of draining and time consuming as well. So kind of thinking about that, and allowing flexible participation without any pressure, and empowering peers to set personal boundaries around difficult topics, and co-creating group agreements around behaviour and communication, and how the group want to work that would make them feel safe and hold that space for them. And thinking about, like any research, thinking about the ethics. So transparency, which really helps with the equity of your group in terms of clearly communicating the purpose and the timeline of the funding, and also mutual respect, so using trauma-informed approaches that value lived experience, and also responsibility, being mindful of the impact of your actions, and safety, to prioritise the physical and emotional safety, and being clear that about safeguarding practices, about escalating this if there's immediate harm. And also it should benefit your peer researchers, so that the whole process should be a part of their journey, and build their confidence and their self-esteem to ensure the research and supports healing and community benefit. And we feel that it's really helpful to involve peer researchers and participants from the very beginning in terms of your design of your project, and having, for example, like a launch event with the participants. How would they like to be involved, and thinking about that to kind of help with the recruitment of what support and safety might need for the project itself. And also knowledge exchange, valuing the process itself, where there's mutual learning, where peers learn from and about research methods and ethics, whereas the facilitators learn about sort of authentic work that's actually grounded in real world sort of experiences, rather than kind of just that learned experience that might not be so connected and rooted. So also thinking about, the peers came back to us and said some of the really key skills that they benefit from this was the communication and teamwork and active listening, public speaking, writing, and for diverse audiences. And we were always flexible with our agenda. So we provided a structure while also allowing room for organic discussion, breaks, and having a breakout space for people to leave the room to, and also having that sort of valuable participation support online access as well. So at the very beginning, we found that one of our peer researchers, due to the very nature of homelessness, was placed out of area. So we adapted to actually offer online a hybrid sort of meeting, because he was fortunate to have Wi-Fi in his temporary accommodation, and we provided with a laptop. So thinking about always adapting and listening to the needs of your group. So yeah, always kind of taking a human person-centered approach to listening to what's necessary and being flexible and adaptive. So yeah, I'm just going to briefly touch on this as I'm running out of time. But we, as part of the peer research manual, we included a bit about the sessions in terms of having a group agreement, the ethics, insider, outsider, ethics in peer research. And in the original manual, we didn't have so much content, but when services came back to us, they really wanted to learn about how to make peer research accessible. And we found that our pilot group just really wanted to have lots of discussion and no structure, whereas our second group really wanted to have a lot of content and learn from us. And also we used metaphors when thinking about examples to move away from anything that could have been triggering when talking about homelessness, and they could really focus on the skills. And we were fortunate enough to work with the University of Southampton, who produced an ethics worksheet that was aimed at bridging the gap between the principles of academic research, but making it more accessible into the community research arena as well. So yeah, and then also we have a section about our stories, and this comes from the reflections of the 19 individuals from 4 peer research groups, and they shared all their kind of perspectives, and so it was really important to have lived experience voice in the peer research manual. It is all the way throughout with speech bubbles and kind of their voices, but a whole section just to kind of share more in depth about that as well. And then finally, we now have a glossary in the peer research manual, and one of the key pieces of feedback was about a shared understanding and the importance of language. So in response, we have this glossary that was produced through a World Catholic approach, and people put in what these words meant to them. So then we formulated the definitions shaped by the 4 groups. And this is now included in the peer research manual, and some of the words that we have defined are in the sort of house image there. So yeah, so if you are interested in learning more or accessing the peer research manual, it is available on this QR code, which you can scan, and also on the Just Life website as well. And we do have hard copies that we can distribute. So yeah, thank you. I'm going to hand you back to Ursula.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Gail. I just saw one question in the Q&A, which maybe just might be helpful just to clarify now, but the others we'll come back to at the end.
Okay.
It was just a difference between peer research and peer researchers and participants. I think what you mean is participants are the research participants that are being interviewed or being sort of, giving their experience with the research, and the peer research just are the trained peers that are conducting the research. Is that right?
Yeah, so peer researchers are the researchers, but with lived experience. And then the research participants are the people that engage in the research. For example, who we interview, who we invite to be part of the focus group. So you have lived experience throughout, but you have lived experience as the researchers, then lived experience participants. So I hope that clarifies things.
Brilliant. Thank you. I just thought that was a quick, easy one that we could get out of the way. And people have asked about this ethics sheets as well. I'm assuming that is part of the manual. So there's a link in the chat to the manual as well. And obviously the slides will be shared. So if you're interested in kind of detail specifically around ethics, you can go and have a wee look at that as well. Excellent. Thank you so much, Gail. And we'll come back to some of the other questions after the other presentations, because I think there's some themes that would be interesting to kind of think about from all the projects. Brilliant. I'm going to hand over to Viki, who's going to try and share your screen.
This could be where it all goes wrong.
No pressure. No pressure.
Is that it?
Yes, and it's full screen as well, which is excellent.
Good. did something right today. Lovely. So I think we've introduced ourselves already, so we'll not need to do that again. So it's Ursula, James and I for this next part of the presentation. And we are here representing the All In for Change team. And this is a platform for lived and frontline experience of homelessness in Scotland. So we've got people in frontline roles who are sponsored by their organisations to be part of the team, who sponsor their time, you know, so they're getting time off of work to come to our monthly meetings, which we call retreats, and any other additional activities that we've got. So we'll come on to that in a bit, but maybe consultations or time to do our road shows and that sort of thing. So Cyrenian, so Ursula and I support the frontline workers within the programme, and then our colleagues at Homeless Network Scotland, and I know that Michelle and David are watching just now, and so they support our colleagues who have lived experience of homelessness and who aren't in frontline roles. So they support and employ and pay them for their time. So we are a team of people committed to effecting change and influencing policy and practice in Scotland, and we bridge the gap between policy and what's happening on the ground. So we've got around just under 30, I think, within our team, and that's a mix of frontline, lived experience and some people who have both. The team began in December 2019, and some such as myself have been a part of the team since the beginning. So I started off as a change lead and now help to facilitate the team, and other people have joined us along the way. So we like to keep the team as fresh as possible, bringing in new perspectives, but also not losing the knowledge of the more experienced members of the team. And yeah, we're facilitated by Cyrenians and Homeless Network Scotland with funding from Scottish Government and St Martin's Frontline Network. So I'll pass over to Ursula.
Now I needed to remember to unmute myself. Thank you, Viki. So what we've got here is what we call the 4 new directions. And so this is kind of the broad sort of policy and practice goals that we're striving for in Scotland when it comes to tackling homelessness. So these come from a kind of policy document called the Ending Homelessness Together Action Plan, and they were then developed as based on kind of a nationwide consultation to try and find a way of kind of breaking down this kind of maybe slightly dry policy document into some plain language goals that we could kind of use as a team to communicate with people across the country. So I don't know, the text is maybe a little small, so I'll just explain what they are as well. So we've got people first, which is all about people being able to lead the support that they want, support that is strength-based and really kind of emphasizing the importance of choice and control. We have No Wrong Door, which is about people not being turned away from services or denied support because you have a joined up sort of network of services and sectors out with homelessness as well. So that can involve the health sector, justice sector, things like that. We've got At Home, which is all about home housing, people being able to exercise the right to adequate housing as quickly as possible. And then we've got Good Vibes, which I think is what All In for Change always strives to have in all of our meetings and activities. But this is very much about how do we kind of challenge stigma around homelessness? How do we help people who have not been affected by homelessness understand what it is and why people are exposed to it? And also about kind of challenging some of the power dynamics that maybe existed between services and people accessing services. So in short, these are kind of the directions that Scotland as a country is trying to strive towards. And it also provides a framework for us as a change team. So part of our remit is to kind of report on how we're doing, and I mean we as the wide sector in Scotland. So we kind of try every year through our national roadshows or through our research to kind of take the temperature on these different goals. So it's about kind of, yeah, where we're getting better at it, what are the barriers, what's getting in the way, and these are the kind of headlines that we use for that. But it also helps inform our meetings and our priorities. I guess it's probably unnecessary to say that this is not the reality. This is something that we're working towards, but we found it really useful to have these kind of quite, I guess, easily accessible goals to kind of engage with people and learn a bit more about the changes that are happening and the progress that is happening on the ground, but also what's getting in the way. And I guess interestingly, when all of the change has been out and speaking to people and engaging with people, what we mostly hear is that we're making progress when it comes to people first and good vibes, which is very much around how we treat people, how we listen to people, how we understand people going through homelessness. Whereas the two at home and no wrong door, that kind of more systemic issues that can be affected by things like lack of housing stock or, lack of joint up working and referral pathways and all of that. Those are the ones that are proving to be harder to change, basically. But yeah, I'll pass you back over to Viki now.
Lovely, thank you. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the opportunities that we've had to influence policy within Scotland. So a big win for us has been the Ask and Act duties. So a group of people from the All In for Change team were on something called the Prevention Commission, which fed into the Scottish Government's Prevention Review Group. And that made recommendations for changes in legislation around homeless prevention. And that included the Ask and Act duty, which has been taken forward within the Housing Scotland Bill. And that has just passed stage 2 in the Scottish Parliament, with stage 3 expected after the summer recess. So what this is basically is a duty on public bodies to ask and act about homelessness, with the aim of identifying individuals and households at risk of homelessness sooner and coordinating a response to prevent that crisis point being reached and bringing in the right support at the right time. So it's about identifying those risks earlier, and hopefully it might mean that people and households don't lose their tenancy, and work can happen a lot sooner and not when households are imminently about to be evicted. So it will extend the being threatened with homelessness status from 2 months, which is currently in Scotland, to 6 months. And then that duty will fall on local authorities to start the prevention activities at that point. Third sector organisations, support services and advice agencies will obviously be key to making this work in practice. But I think it's really important that the idea came directly from the sector and from people who have lived experience of homelessness. You'll see a photo on the slide there. So either side of the table, excuse me, we have Shay and Susie, who are change leads and gave evidence at Scottish Parliament last spring about the housing bill. And you'll also see an extract and example of where we've been quoted in reports. So this was from the Social Justice and Social Security Committee, their stage 1 report on the Housing Scotland bill. So we've been quoted in a number of reports and have a good relationship with Scottish Government, and have a representative from Scottish Government who attends all of our monthly meetings. So we have a link back and up to the Scottish Government, as well as us giving information to them, so we can have questions answered in real time, and we can find out about any current or upcoming policy changes a lot sooner, I think, than we would do without having that link there. We also have a representation on the HPSG, which is the Homelessness Prevention and Strategy Group. And that meets several times a year and was chaired by a housing minister, although there's been a recent reshuffle, so unclear who the chairing will now fall to. But this is just another example of where the change team have had seats in influential and decision-making groups. And we've also had reps on 4 recent task and finish groups set up by the Scottish Government, and that included prevention, supported housing, measuring impact and temporary accommodation. And I'll pass back on to Ursula. Ursula and James, I think now. Yeah.
Thank you, Viki. Yeah, so as Viki's kind of touched upon, that's sort of the how are we influencing decision makers, but obviously we also trying to influence the sector and practice and really just connecting and learning from people across the country. So we've kind of done that in different ways over the years, and I'd say we keep learning and sort of adapting and changing how we do that. But the last couple of years, a kind of important sort of annual activity that we've done is our annual road shows. So that's we've been out and about in the country, and when I say we, I don't just mean me and Viki, but all of the members of the team, our change leads. We've been out and about in Scotland running workshops for frontline workers in local areas and focus groups for people who are accessing services. So last year in 2024, 146 people took part in our roadshow, and we visited Aberdeen, Greenock, Falkirk, Kirkcaldy and Clydebank. I don't know if that means anything to people who are not from Scotland, but it's kind of spread out. We always try to kind of cover the sort of 5 housing hubs in Scotland, and we try to always make sure we host events in all of those. And so the final report was shared with the Scottish Government. I think Abby maybe put a link earlier in actually to the report, and it was shared with the HPSG group that Viki just mentioned, but and also, you know, we shared it at conferences and other sort of sector events. And I think an important part of the roadshows has been learning what's happening in different parts of Scotland. So while we have members on our team that are based out with kind of what we call the Central Belt in Scotland, which is sort of around kind of Edinburgh and Glasgow and the middle of Scotland, a lot of the people who are engaging sort of regularly with the team are based in and around the kind of big cities. So through our roadshow activities, it's been a way to learn more about rural homelessness and hearing about the challenges that are happening on the ground in more remote areas of Scotland. But also sometimes it's been about hearing this really great practice that's maybe going on locally, that because the systems are just under maybe slightly less pressure than in Glasgow and Edinburgh. So sometimes it's been quite encouraging going out and hearing about some of the great partnerships and projects that are happening. So yeah, that's really been one of the ways that we're trying to make sure we gather information from all over the country. And it also says peer research here. So obviously Gail has just given a really thorough introduction to the peer research they carried out in Brighton. But we are sort of in the middle of a peer research project as part of sort of All in for Change umbrella of work. So I think James wanted to just share a wee bit about what that process has been like. And obviously we don't have a report and findings yet, but they will come out later this summer. So James, are you okay to share a wee bit now?
Totally, yeah. So I mean, like the peer research has been really great. It was the peer research network that came in and like sat with us and basically helped us construct it from the ground up. And like at every point there was like, you know, our input was key to it. Like we came up with like a journey map kind of approach. So, you know, you've got a nice big A3 sheet that kind of starts before kind of meeting up with services, first contact with services, moving forward, and then like end destination. So like you know, it was really easy to move through with people. Like and the thing is, when it's your people, you end up getting like some really rich data because there's not that barrier, there's not that class difference. You know, it's you're part of that culture. So it's like yeah, like so it was great. We got all around Scotland. Like I personally got out to Aberdeen and Inverclyde. Like And yeah, some really good data. Like you know, like with peer research, I mean, you're not going to get the same rigorous data as you're going to get from the upper echelons of academia, but what you are going to get is you're going to get really rich, honest stories from people. Like when you're looking at qualitative data, it's, you know, you get some good stuff. Basically, as a team, it's been really great as well, because off the back of that, it developed people's confidence really, really well. So, I mean, off the back of that, a few of the guys went out and basically went speaking to people, the kind of people that would be using a night shelter, like and collected some really, really good stories from people, presented it to Glasgow Council, and Glasgow Council have agreed to do something. I mean, what? We're not really sure yet, but something is better than nothing. That's less cold people on the street. So, I mean, the team did great with that, you know, and now we've kind of, I was at a meeting the other day where it's repurposing that journey map to go out and get speaking to people again. So, I mean, yeah, it's powerful stuff, and it's like, it's really great to work with. So, yeah, cheers, guys.
Excellent. Thank you so much, James. So yeah, peer research, you know, watch the space. There'll be an actual report with findings and everything coming out. I think we're aiming for August. So that's really exciting. And I think it's kind of been a bit of an evolution of doing the roadshows and learning from the workshops and the stuff that we did there, and then really trying to grab this opportunity to upskill members of the team and have that, like, those really honest peer-to-peer conversations, as James has said. So yeah, that's, we're really excited.
Sorry, I was like, I can remember one more I forgot.
No, go on.
So everyone we interviewed got 50 quid in cash as well. Like, I forgot to mention that, because it's like you're asking for somebody's time. You're asking them to share their story. And if you think their story's worth any less than 50 quid, I'd say it's probably more. It's because he lives in it.
Excellent. Yes, that's a very good point. I'm glad that you mentioned that as well, James. And so just the last point on this slide is just, you know, we're doing things like this, workshops and events. Every year, Homeless Network Scotland hosts a big annual homelessness conference in Scotland, and that's in person, and people are coming from all over the country. And we always have members of the change team kind of part of planning for that and running it on the day. We had people interviewing the housing minister last year. I think maybe that was actually you, James. And we ran some workshops with participants at the conference as well. So it's just about offering all these kind of different opportunities for people to get involved. Next slide, please, Viki, if you can change it. Lovely. So we got about 6 minutes left. I'm sure we'll manage. So we just wanted to kind of consolidate a bit of what we've learned so far. So I think Gail talked a lot about flexibility as well, and I really want to kind of reiterate that. So everyone's situation is different. Obviously, on All In for Change, we have a mix of people who are in kind of full-time employment and sort of getting sponsored by the job to attend our meetings and activities. And sometimes, you all know the workload on frontline workers, sometimes that's just not possible, and they might have to step back a little bit. And then on the other hand, we might have people who situation change, and either they're just not, maybe not in the right place to kind of be involved anymore. And we just sort of offer a lot of flexibility. People can step back for months at a time and then still come back. And I think the team has enough kind of give and flexibility to enable that. And again, in terms of choice and kind of range of opportunities, just really very much about what people want to do. Some people hate public speaking. I would never dream of delivering any kind of session, and that's completely fine. Other people really like to kind of go out and meet and facilitate groups and do the research, and we just kind of try and offer as much flexibility. And then I think relationships, it's just such an obvious one, but it's just really important, and it's important to make sure that there's time to kind of get to know each other as people. And I think something that I think James mentioned as well with doing the research, you kind of get to spend quite a lot of time with each other as well. So you might be on a train for like 4 hours to get to Inverness, or you might be sort of staying at a hotel, and it's just really kind of offering an opportunity to bond as well. And I think just because of the nature of the kind of conversations that we're having, where people are sharing quite a lot of themselves, whether that is their own personal experience or their experience of working in the sector. It just means that you really get to see beyond kind of roles and titles or whatever labels, and we just really get to connect as people. So we do try and prioritize that, and within budget kind of do a few things like activities that just give people a bit of a nice experience. So we had a festive lunch in Edinburgh Zoo last December, and everybody got to kind of go around afterwards in the zoo, and it was just a really nice day. And then I think this was actually your point, James, around like it's around having professional support with a relational approach, but it's not about having a support worker. It's all about having like an equal relationship, and just really making sure that everyone's opinions are being respected. And I think just because we'll have people with very different perspectives. You know, if you're a frontline worker who works for a local authority that is maybe under a lot of pressure and have a caseload of 300, or you're maybe a support worker working at a charity, or you're someone who's been through homelessness yourself, quite different perspectives on the same issues. But I think it's really about creating a room and a space where people are kind of, really respectful of each other's experience. And I think, Viki already mentioned that, but we do have this really great relationship with the homelessness unit at Scottish Government. So we have had the same representative for like over 3 years who comes along to our meetings. And it just means that it kind of demystifies that sort of policy decision-making space. And it means that we have a chance to kind of share real life stories and the impact of people, like quite informally as well. So some of it's the formal policy things like committees and evidence and consultations, but some of it can just be kind of conversations. And then I guess the last one is, change takes time. Systems change takes time. None of this is anything that can kind of happen overnight, unfortunately. So, for example, when Viki was talking about the prevention duties and the Ask and Act idea, again, that came about years ago, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and is only now going through Parliament. So there's some things when you're trying to influence legislation, it's recognizing that you're sort of in it for the long haul. It's not going to be that quick. So it's also about being realistic about timeframes and how quickly we can expect to see things change. But at the same time, I think we really try and celebrate the kind of contributions that we're making and the small wins along the way. It's a specific type of co-production and influencing work, I think, because it's not localized, it is national, so it's just going to take a bit more time. I think we're getting to the last slide, is that true?
Thank you. And that's a photo there of our Christmas lunch at the zoo. I think a lot of this we've probably covered already. Gail spoke really well as well about the importance of being paid. So not only paying people for their expenses, travel expenses, and that sort of thing, but also paying people for their time. So it's really difficult to kind of minimize power imbalances if half of the people in the room are being paid as a frontline worker and the other half are given their time free of charge. So by paying people a fair wage and paying the living wage, then it helps with some of those power dynamics and everyone's getting paid for their work. And we've also learned to prioritise shared discussions and lay the groundwork for a shared understanding of problems and how they can be solved. And that can take time. So all that stuff around relationship building that Ursula spoke about is really important. But also everyone won't always agree all of the time, and that's okay. So we have the same ethos, so we've got the same end goal and we're working towards that together, but sometimes there can be differences of opinion on how we get to that goal, or what's caused the issues in the first place, so what the solutions should be. But by having respect and listening to each other's opinions, we usually manage to navigate our way to a consensus. We've also spoke already about listening to different viewpoints from different parts of the country, and that can take additional time, effort and money, but it's important to have those other perspectives out with the Central Belt, and having a better understanding of rural homelessness and what's going on in areas that we aren't predominantly from. So a lot of the team are from the Central Belt. And it's an important space for us, bringing together policymakers, practitioners and people with lived experience into the same room and taking part in the same discussion. So we're all people at the end of the day. We've all got our own experiences and our own skills and knowledge to bring to situations and to find solutions. So it's important that we create those informal spaces where everyone can meet and share, whether it's the housing minister or a civil servant or people within the team. And that's us, I think.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Viki. So that's all from the presentations. And now we've got a few questions in the chat. So I'll just kind of post them to our speakers, and you can still add more questions. And I think so there's quite a lot of chat around kind of payment, and I think that is quite a common sort of challenge for any sort of co-production peer-to-peer lived experience research work around kind of how do you actually compensate people. And so Gail, I think this was when you were presenting, there's a question around how you kind of get around, I guess, the restrictions from the DWP and how, yeah, just sort of a bit more about how you pay people. I don't know if that's also, there might be in the research, in the manual, sorry, but if you could share a wee bit about the kind of practicalities of that maybe.
Yeah, so we paid people above the living wage. We paid £15 an hour, and that was either via bank transfer or by voucher based on the conversation. So at the very beginning of the project, we had like an open, honest kind of discussion about how people wanted to be paid, but also kind of frank conversations like how that could impact their benefits. So we encouraged people to look at the benefits calculator and encourage people to declare it to the DWP, but we didn't force that on people. We left that to decision making for them and kept that a sort of live discussion with people. But it is a really challenging thing to navigate. And we kind of have been following these social change agencies payment for lived experience playbook, which is really useful. And they've kind of just done another one about difficult conversations in terms of how you support people specifically with the DWP aspect, because we need to sort of recognise that there is sort of you are putting a risk on someone if they choose not to, and kind of sort of thinking about how you meaningfully actually support someone. So looking at letters that you can share with people, because there's sort of it depends on the length of time as well that people are being paid for this project. So yeah, just kind of it was definitely a challenge, and we've definitely kind of pulled up our sort of knowledge around that by a lot of reading kind of discussions. So yeah, it's not an easy one.
Thanks, Gail. And there's also, the first question was around kind of how you, when you don't have sort of a set concept of what the research is going to be about from the beginning, kind of how do you include people with the relevant lived experience to the subjects, and how do you kind of get from that, I guess, quite open stage at the beginning to the more sort of set research kind of objectives?
So for our project, the objective was just to learn how to do peer research from the Young Foundation. So we didn't have like a specific kind of plan. And the overarching idea was intersectionality and homelessness, which can be so broad. So we didn't kind of have any issues when recruited people, because we just kind of recruited anyone with experience of homelessness, and each represented different intersectionalities by default. So it kept broad. And then at the very beginning, we kind of invited people to choose what they wanted to research on. And then again, like I'm coordinated creative community research projects at the moment, and there was like a kind of funding opportunity to look at women's mental health in relation to homelessness. So then, yes, we recruited someone with experience of homelessness and women's mental health, but then left it from there what she chose to focus on more specifically. And she actually was involved in writing the bid on this one. So from the very beginning. So yeah, very broad sort of ideas first, and then narrow it down what you want to look at. So
brilliant, thank you. And there's another question that I think we can probably sort of post to both projects, but it's about kind of how do you juggle sort of keeping things slow and drop-in based while still being clear on progress, aims, goals, etc., and how to keep people engaged and motivated. So Viki, I might throw that one over to you as well, because I think it's probably relevant for the change team as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I think one of the things that we found is having that less sort of formal time, so making sure there's plenty of time when we meet to sort of chat informally and get to know each other, as well as having periods during the day. So when we meet, it's for an entire day and kind of once a month. So we try and do a mixture of, if we've got some quite heavy topics, it's maybe consultation or looking at legislation, we try and make sure that the whole day isn't taken up with that, and there's maybe some other fun things to do as well. So I think that really helps keep everybody sort of engaged and motivated. But also, I think having clarity on the overarching aims, so having those 4 directions that you showed earlier on in the presentation, Ursula, we've got them as our overarching thing, and then I guess where we're co-producing stuff is around how do we make this a reality. So there's maybe more a structure, I guess, from the outset than with Gail's peer research, which is more open to whatever direction it takes.
Brilliant, thank you. Gail, do you have any reflections on that?
yeah, I'd just like to agree, actually. Like, we also made them informal in some areas. It wasn't always structured. We definitely made a lot of time for fun and engagement, and definitely like relationship building at the very beginning to kind of keep them kind of engaged and like motivated. And they were very sort of passionate people about campaigns, so they were definitely enthusiasm and stayed engaged. And yeah, there was periods where people were less involved. And also we kind of gave that option for people to choose what they were interested in. So as you said in yours, some people absolutely loved being part of the public speaking sort of kind of front sort of things, whereas other people, yeah, would absolutely rather not. And we looked at it from sort of an asset-based sort of community sort of area, thinking about the strengths in the room. So people were like, oh, I'd love to go and do the data collection. I'd love to go and do the data analysis, so led by what you want to do. And being really transparent with the length of the project from the very beginning, and not being unrealistic with the amount of things that you're trying to achieve, and being really like, yeah, giving lots of time from the very beginning, not trying to kind of squeeze too many things into like a tight space, and yeah, so kind of just being realistic of where it goes, really.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, I think that's, especially if anyone is kind of funding co-production processes, I think you really need to be aware of the time that it takes, and that it's not like a nice, direct, linear kind of development, but things kind of take detours. And because you obviously, the whole point is to kind of be able to follow some of those interests and priorities directly from people. All right, so there's a question around the cash payment for the research that you mentioned, James, but I can see Michelle's put a bit of an answer in there. So just whoever asked that, there's a written answer for you. And I guess, so we've actually been through the Q&As, but I just kind of wanted to ask everyone sort of what the benefits for people who are part of a co-production process. What have you seen? We've got a bit of a mix of participants and facilitators in the room. So I was just really interested to hear kind of people's reflections on that. Gail, do you want to start?
Yeah, So the obvious one in terms of the benefits has been, of course, like the learning of the research skills, but also people in the evaluation stage really came back and said that they really learned a lot about softer skills as well, and particularly about communication skills. And some people said that they had not worked in a group sort of before, and so even things like making sure they have better listening skills and listening to other people's opinions and perspectives, and kind of thinking about those, and not talking over others either. Or and also it really helped them feel validated and valued for their lived experience, and they felt that they were kind of more taken seriously and respected, and kind of felt a lot more empowered. And they found being part of a co-production peer research sort of project really opened many more doors. Sort of it really gave opportunities for networking, and actually a platform to actually go and speak to MPs and kind of get their voices heard, and kind of get that forward, and kind of it's just a lot of personal growth, like connection with kind of their personal journey. For some people it was like a part of their recovery, and so it really helped them sort of with that healing process, because we really want it to be conducive to healing rather than a non-extractive approach, which sometimes research can inadvertently be. Like they're just learning along the way and kind of going through that process rather than being re-traumatized. And yeah, it really helped them embrace their sort of experiences in the past. Of course, they would want to change that, but it kind of really helped them kind of come to terms with that. So yeah, sort of from a well-being perspective, from a learning perspective, and also from a self-esteem and confidence. We had some people that at the very beginning said that they wouldn't ever public speak, and she wouldn't even attend events, and now she's running her own events in public speaking, and so it's really kind of made her feel like her self-esteem has really improved in confidence. So
Brilliant. That's a great example. James, I'm wondering, do you have any things you want to share on this bit, just around kind of, I guess, what you've gotten out of it? No pressure. I'm just putting you on the spot.
Oh, totally. It's it's been really like I'm actually in university just now, so it's like the peer research stuff makes a really great case for trying to be able to do something interesting from a dissertation instead of just some like boring, risk averse kind of don't speak to anybody kind of project, So this is like, it's great, like and it's like and there's so much learning in it as well. Like, you get the chance to speak up for your people, but then at the same time you get the explanation for why things are happening. Like and a lot of the time it's pretty difficult to argue with, you know what I mean? Like I share this when we hang, right? I mind having a wee whinge, right? So I was like, we're speaking about a project, and I was like, is this gonna be working with jail leavers? And she's like, yeah, we linked them with the city centre team. If anyone knows the city centre of Glasgow, it's not the best. Like it's not a very conducive environment for getting out of prison, Like and I'm like, what? That's giving them no chance at all. And she goes, aye, but the places outside the city centre are for families. And there's like, and you see the logic, you see what it's like when they're working. It's easy to sit there throwing shit at them, but they're working with very little and try to do the best they can. So I mean that's what I've found great about co-production now. It humanizes the system. It's a broken system with a bunch of good people working in it.
That was a great quote. I'll write that down. Viki, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think James is right. I think that it does humanize what's going on. So, and when we've gone out to the road shows, and even with people within the team, it's all it can be really easy to paint a certain part of the system or the sector as the villains, but actually there's people working in those roles who are struggling, and as James says, doing as much as they can with often very little or nothing. On a more positive note, I think that some of the benefits and some of the feedback we've had from frontline workers have been being part of the team has made them feel less alone. So sort of having solidarity and people that you can kind of I guess just vent to, people working in similar jobs. You can vent to having that chance to network being able to keep up to date with policy changes and then all the learning and development opportunities. So public speaking comes up quite a lot. So people in frontline roles saying that they rarely get the chance to go to events and speak. And even things such as the Homeless Network Scotland conference, having change leads being a part of that and being able to interview the housing minister or speak on panels in front of, you know, a massive audience. It's a real achievement. And yeah, so there's a lot of positives to the co-production.
Brilliant, thank you, Viki. Yeah, I remember one of our frontline members was like, it's always CEOs that get to do this. They always get to go out and meet and network and hear from other people, and you often kind of get maybe a bit stuck in your own little organization's bubble. And I think there is something really quite powerful about, like, again, from a well-being perspective for frontline workers as well, in terms of offering some of those spaces where you can kind of hear about what's going on elsewhere. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so I mean, we're almost on time. If anyone has any last minute questions, I would put it in right now. Otherwise, I guess just like a quick, snappy answer from everyone. What was an unexpected challenge of running the co-production project that you're involved in, and what do you kind of wish you'd known when you started? So I'm going to throw that over to you, Gail.
Again, time always. I'd say I think if I'd from the very beginning in the design, I would have thought about the sort of ending the project well. The beginning of it is so important, like bringing people in the recruitment, and you're so sort of thinking about the sort of things you want to achieve. That yeah, it's really important to think about the people in terms of what their next steps. As I said, it's part of the journey. So in the end, we actually extended our project to have a whole 3 months about sort of transitioning people into other aspects of sort of things, whether it is more co-production sort of things or supporting someone into university through our community research project, and the well-being sort of like that ending that can actually be very challenging because you've been so together for 2 years, then actually to come to an end. So yeah, just supporting around that a bit more. I think thinking that from the very beginning to build that in, and keep those live discussions open at the beginning.
Brilliant, thank you, Gail. Viki, do you have a 1 minute answer for this, and then I'll round up?
I think being a national programme, it's probably something around the logistics. So really wanting to include voices of people that don't live within the central belt, you know, so that are maybe in more remote or rural locations, but actually them having the time and the capacity to be able to take a day or two out of their working week to come and meet with us in person. So during the pandemic, we'd moved on, just trying to speak really quickly here, we'd moved all online, so we were able to capture a lot more voices within that, but then you're losing a lot of the relationship building, and people like meeting in person. So we've had to really try and balance having different locations on the go, but also throwing in some online meetings as well to try and get as many people as we can included and involved.
Brilliant. Well done, everyone. That was very quick and efficient. I'm going to round up now because we've only got a minute left. There's lots of links in the chat, and thank you for all your comments and your questions, and thank you to our speakers. I hope, everyone's had a good conference day, and obviously, there's going to be a recording available. So if you missed it or you had to dip out during the session, you'll be able to rewatch this, which is horrifying for us as speakers, but great for everyone else. So hope everyone enjoyed it, and I hope you have a lovely afternoon, and take care, and get in touch if you have any questions afterwards. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.